Today's devotional is based on Joshua chapter 24. Joshua is near the end of his days, and knowing this, he chooses to make one last appeal to God's people. I think it's noteworthy that Joshua gathers all of the leaders of Israel to initiate change. And he does so in Shechem. This is the same place where the Lord spoke to Abram and promised him that he would give his offspring all of that land. You see, it's just a beautiful picture as we observe Joshua, the conqueror of the promised land, reminding God's people that God is a promise keeper. Verse 14 it tells us that to put away the gods. Another translation says to throw away the gods your ancestors worship. It's incredible. It's appalling that Joshua is at the end of his days still trying to convince God's people to give up their fathers' pagan gods. They have gone through so much, and even while standing in the fulfilled promise of God, some just would not let go of the past. Now, today we stand in the fulfilled promises of God, and many still hang on to the things that should have been left to your old way of living. Take a moment and consider if there are any old habits you still cling to. What are the vices that still hold your life hostage? The funny thing is that Israel was hanging on to gods and maybe even idols that they knew didn't work. They carried this dead weight on their journey in their luggage and in their hearts. And yes, it was concealed, but it only made the load heavier. Hebrews chapter 12 tells us to lay aside all weight and sin which so easily ensnares us. And it's not until we let go entirely and trust God completely that we will truly enjoy God's promises. So, why carry useless idols around and exercise vain religion? Why practice things that may lead to self-inflicted wounds? And why risk our children's spiritual legacy? Let's be the generation that stops the sin cycle in our family tree. And let's be a generation that stands on God's promises. Let's be a generation who has nothing to be ashamed about.